Geopolitics today is in a state of continuous flux, and India has been emerging as a new epicenter of latest developments of this subject that has kept everyone across the globe hooked. But what is really making headlines today is the negotiations going on between the US and Iran. The two sides have been fighting for the past 90 days at least, and there's been a fragile ceasefire that exists at the moment. But a ceasefire, like the US President Donald Trump termed it, is one where moderate fighting keeps happening. Now, this is a situation that might be unprecedented for some political observers. And to discuss this situation and its fallout on India, we have with us a very seasoned diplomat, somebody who has spent years in the IFS. So we're going to ask him questions that relate not only to Iran but also the wider Middle East region, because he is somebody who's watched this region closely and has spent years there. So thank you so much for talking to India abroad. This has been a time where people have, sort of tried to dissect what is happening in Middle East especially. But every day we're seeing that there's some new geopolitical turn thanks to the US President Donald Trump. You've been keenly following the updates and also enlightening us with your, with your watchful eyes and how you view the region. But since you have been one person who spent time in Iran, spent time in Qatar, I would really want to ask you, explain to us, what is the Middle East of today? How does it look like today? How is it different from when you were there?
Thank you for a very, timely question. I was first secretary in Iran from 1976 to 79 when the revolution occurred.
Yeah.
So I had watched it at close quarters. Now, coming to what is now happening, we should remember above all, the war was started on 28 February when Israel attacked Iran and joined by the United States within hours. And the explanation given by Secretary of State Marco Rubio is that Israel was going to attack Iran and Iran will retaliate against also the United States, and therefore it was necessary for the United States to attack Iran.
Right.
Now, I do not know whether the media have taken full note of this explanation. Now, let's understand what really happened. Mossad had been monitoring the movements of the Ayatollah. Well, according to Israeli Defense Minister, since November 2024.
Okay.
But, it could have been longer. And their policy is that once the valuable target has been located in an area where it is to the advantage of Israel to act instantaneously, then they will do it come what may.
Okay.
So we may take it that Israel carried out that attack when they found Ayatollah Khamenei in a situation surrounded by so many, his family and senior leaders, or, So that was that. In other words, Israel started this war. But it started its war anticipating America's approval and getting America's green signal in no time. That is the starting point. Now the question is, why did Israel do it? Israel has been saying that Iran was about to make a bomb and therefore it was necessary. Well, I do not think known facts corroborate that.
Okay.
The National Intelligence Director of the United States, Tulsi Gabbard, she had told the Congress that according to the intelligence which the United States had, Iran had seized pursuing a nuclear weapon
Okay.
making program. Now, Trump had contradicted his own intelligence,
Okay.
saying that that's wrong.
Mm.
Why? Because Israel has been telling him. And in other words, plain English, Trump preferred Israeli intelligence to US intelligence. The second part is, again, Mossad made an assessment that if the Ayatollah and a number of top leaders are killed,
Mm-hmm.
and if heavy bombing is carried on for a few days,
Right.
then the regime will either collapse or it will say uncle, meaning it will ask for surrender.
Surrender.
Well, as far as Trump is concerned, he bought that assessment of Mossad. He also thought that it would be another Venezuela.
Right.
Now, this shows that President Trump has neither the time nor the inclination to understand Iran, a very, it's a civilization state.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, in business, we speak of KYC,
Mm-hmm.
know your customer.
True. They didn't know their enemy.
Well,
Should have done a KYE.
yeah, in international relations, you should always know KY, I will say KYI, know your interlocutor,
Uh-huh.
whom you are talking to, whom you are dealing with. Now, in other words, that is a basic lacuna in the US system. And one more before I conclude my answer to this question.
Mm-hmm.
President Trump has marginalized professional diplomats and also the professional military.
Right.
He listens to advice from in India, long time ago, during Mrs. Gandhi's time,
Right.
we used to speak of her kitchen cabinet, quote unquote. Now, President Trump has his kitchen cabinet. And I'm sorry to say, he has appointed persons who are not always fully qualified. An Iranian vessel was torpedoed in the first week of March near the coast of Sri Lanka.
Right.
Pete Hegseth, the Secretary for War, he boasted that this is the first time such a torpedoing has been done since the end of World War II. Now, what upset me was his boasting. After all, human beings were killed.
Right.
That ship was not carrying any arms.
Yeah, it was on a peaceful mission.
It had come for a fleet get together in India.
Yeah.
Invited
by India. Yeah.
And it was going back. Okay, so that was very, very, what shall I say, outrageous.
Yeah.
But then he was historically wrong.
True.
In 1982, the Royal Navy had done it to Argentina, Falklands War. Now, then, historians will tell you that was the sixth time after World War II.
True.
So, what America did was the seventh time, not the first time. Now, a point. The United States Department of State has a good setup called the Office of the Historian. Now, if the Secretary for War had asked his office to consult the Office of the Historian, he would have known all about it. Knowing history or taking history seriously is not in fashion.
So, you already mentioned a bit about the nuclear question. That happens to be a major question during these negotiations too. The IAEA has just said that it's not going to be very easy to take away all the nuclear stockpile from Iran, and it since it's in gaseous form, it either needs to be, diluted, or there has to be another way to look around it. You said that, in fact, the nuclear weapon was never the goal of Iran. And that's you. I mean, you mentioned that it was the U.S. intelligence that had concluded the same. What can be the reality behind? This nuclear question, because this is going to be the biggest question during the negotiations, and that's what the two countries have already been discussing. Apart from Lebanon, of course, this remains a sticking point. Can we really say that Iran had actually given up this question? Because we've already, it's clear that there are stockpiles, but can the intention ever be proven that it was it was for a civilian program and never for a weapon? Plus, what now can be the recourse? Can US really, remove the stockpile easily? And how is the IAEA also going to, get into play?
Okay. I just mentioned that it is unfashionable to learn from history or to remember history. So let's do what is unfashionable. 2015, JCPOA, Joint Common Plan of Action, agreed to when Obama was president. In my view, it had taken full care of the matter because Iran's nuclear activities in toto were under monitoring and safeguards inspection of IAEA. So there was no question of Iran's moving towards nuclear weapon. This is mathematically clear. Okay. Now you will ask me, why did Iran have so much material, about 440.9 kg,
True.
Enriched up to 60%. That is because President Trump walked out of that agreement in 2018. Now again, let's go back in history. As a candidate for the 2016 election, at a point of time, President Trump was going to withdraw because he was not getting good response.
Okay.
Then a man called Steve Bannon, he must be well known in the United States and elsewhere. He went and told him, there is a way out. I'll give you a formula for winning the election.
Okay.
And that formula included criticizing, condemning the Obama Accord, which Trump did as a candidate. And then he walked out of it in 2018, reimposed sanctions on Iran. And then what happened? Europeans, well, initially they told Iran that we will still do business with you and you should go on talking to the United States. Iran was prepared. Then America threatened and Europeans got scared and they stopped doing business with Iran. In other words, sanctions were imposed on Iran in full measure. Iran did it because that is the only way to attract attention and seek a resolution. And Iran has said it so many times. 27th of February this year, Geneva, Embassy of Oman, the two delegations met and they agreed on a text. Of course, at referendum. That is, the principals have to agree. But they agreed on a text which provided for zero stockpiling, zero enrichment, and that enriched uranium will be either downblended or disposed of otherwise. And fourth, Iran agreed never ever to seek a nuclear weapon. Now that was good enough.
True.
And because the American negotiators were innocent of technical details, safeguards and all that. It was agreed that the two delegations with technical experts will meet in Geneva the next week. That was the case. And then what happened? The Oman foreign minister who mediated, he came to Washington, he called on Vice President Vance, briefed him. Well, within hours, Israel attacked. And then the Omani foreign minister went on a program, Face the Nation, 60 minutes.
Right.
And he gave us the whole story.
True.
In other words, for the second time, when diplomatic talks were on and had reached or were likely to reach a good conclusion, America attacked Iran.
It really raises two important questions. One is, then why was the need for this war? Why is this theatrics being played out? And a very brutal theatrics, let me tell you. And the second question is that, Iran has displayed amazing ability of resistance. You've been to Iran, you've served there. Take us through the psyche of the Iranian people as well. Because they have exhibited what several other countries have failed to exhibit, that is strength of, the mental setup they have.
Good. Let me address the first question first. Why did this war occur? It is because Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he himself said he had been dreaming about it for 40 years. Why? Because it is part of the greater Israel agenda. Because if sanctions are lifted on Iran, then Iran will become a major power in the region. Now, that means there will be a power that will contest Israel.
Israeli domination.
Whereas Netanyahu was hoping that with President Trump's help, there will be normalization with Saudi Arabia. And once Saudi Arabia normalizes, all other countries will follow.
Fall in line.
Or even if they don't follow, it doesn't matter. You see?
Yeah.
Now, October 7th happened partly, I would say even principally, to prevent that. Okay. So, Greater Israel is a big project, because if you read the Genesis, it says, they are supposed to get all the land from the Nile to the Euphrates. But there again there is a catch. That is Abraham's descendants. Now Abraham also had a descendant called Ishmael, I think, from whom the Arabs have come. So between the Israelis and the Arabs, they have all the land between the Nile and the Euphrates. So the biblical prophecy, quote unquote, has been fulfilled. Okay. So that is why now this Greater Israel project is part of Netanyahu's, platform.
Agenda.
His Liquid Party. And also don't forget was that Israeli Prime Minister who got the Nobel Prize and who was assassinated. And Netanyahu has been present on occasions celebrating the killing. So that is, in other words, this war occurred because Netanyahu wanted it. Coming to the second question about Iran's psyche. Now, Iran psyche, you see, this government, that is the theocracy. When I was there as first secretary, before Shahin Shah fled, lots of youngsters like you used to come to me. Western educated, management, engineering, doctors. Many of them wanted a copy of the Indian Constitution.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because they said, well, in India you never had a military coup. You have got a democracy that works. So, we want to know more about it. and we also want a similar polity. Now, during those days, I'm talking about 76, 79, there was no email, computer. You can't just download it. We used to cyclostyle it. Something, you have to press it, pages, and get cyclostyle. So we used to give it to these youngsters and discuss it with them. But then, what happened is that those youngsters who wanted a democratic destiny for Iran, they were sidelined.
Okay.
And Iran became a theocracy,
Right.
where the Ayatollah is the supreme leader. I don't think that's the best for Iran. But then again, let me make another point. In 1953, Iran was moving towards democracy because Mossadegh, the prime minister, he nationalized Anglo-Iranian oil company,
Right.
and then he foisted upon the Shah a constitution where Iran will be, what shall I say, a democracy, but the monarch will be like the president.
Right.
No
Nominal.
no executive powers, like in the UK.
Nominal head.
That was agreed to. But then London, which was deprived of this money from the company, profits from the company, in fact, they were taking huge portion of the profit. Iran was hardly getting anything. That is why Mossadegh did it. London wanted Washington to intervene militarily.
Okay.
Eisenhower said no. But then London was able to persuade Eisenhower, and the CIA got into the act, and at a cost of $10,000 at that time, they bribed Iranian generals. And Mossadegh was arrested. Shah, who had fled to Rome, came back. In other words, Iran was marching towards democracy. And America, the oldest democracy, and UK, they stopped that.
Eventually.
They brought back the Shah and, later the theocracy. Okay? The regime of Ayatollah Khamenei was unpopular.
Right.
Because why should the government tell you how to dress? Okay. And other things also. You know what I mean? And of course the sanctions were hurting. Inflation. Okay. So the government was unpopular. And then there was a revolt in December, January, and as you know, thousands were killed. Okay. But after Israel attacked, people rallied around the flag.
Absolutely.
In other words, once again, America has stood in the way of Iran's moving towards democracy. And the psyche of the Iranians, especially of the Shia psyche, is resistance. Absolute resistance. Because you see, they have a very, solipsistic way of looking at things. When an accident takes place, motor car, during my time, between two Iranians, they will come, shake hands and say, Hali Shuma Kube, how's things with you? Kurban Shuma, I sacrifice myself for you.
Oh.
Then the other guy will say, Chashma Shama Kashanke, your eyes are beautiful.
Oh.
So they exchange these greetings and then they come to blows. And each of them believes that the road was made only for him. And other drivers are there by some mistake. Okay, they are convinced. Okay, now they are convinced that, America is evil, America is Satan, and that they can resist.
And there's no middle way.
Yeah, they can resist because Allah is with them.
Okay.
And they will succeed. And they are prepared to suffer. You know what I mean? So that is there. And again, just to give you one example, after the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei, that was on the 28th of February. 2nd of March, Hezbollah started shelling northern Israel. Now, we all know that Hezbollah's military capabilities had been seriously damaged earlier.
Right.
Still, Hezbollah did it. Why? That is because, again, you see, 40 days of mourning
Right.
after the Ayatollah was killed. But what we have to understand is that mourning includes retaliation, revenge. So if you are a male Shia, grown up, you are supposed to do whatever you can to avenge. You don't have to seek anybody's permission.
That's in the books.
Yeah, it is your obligation to do it within that 40-day period. And that is why Hezbollah started firing. Now, this aspect has not been brought out.
Now, this is very interesting. Can we say that it is a battle within two faiths, in their minds at least?
Of course, of course. And they think that, their faith is the faith.
Yes.
Just as the Jews think that their faith
Supremacy of the faith
is their faith. In other words, there is a certain mirror image of each other.
So I think there's also somewhere down the line it goes to the fact that possibly there is an opinion in their minds that it is about the supremacy of their faith also.
Yeah, supremacy, and also the belief that my faith is the only right faith. Others are on the wrong track.
At the moment, we are looking at very complex round of negotiations going on. President Trump is saying that he's very close to negotiations, and Iran, in fact, yesterday's claim that he is getting along with the new Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, and they seem to be heading towards a deal very soon. Now, when I spoke to the Iranians yesterday, because I happen to have some sources, they told me that possibly within another 12 days, they have also decided that they are going to go ahead with a commemoration of Ayatollah's death, because the body is still there. The last rites have still not been performed. So they are planning for something like that. This means technically that the deal is close, at least, because that is only possible once they are through with the negotiation and once both sides can claim that they have won. Both US and Iran, like they did last year, are going to claim that they have won. How do you see the real points, the sticking points being addressed? One is the nuclear question. Second, of course, is the Lebanon question. How do you see both of them being?
Good. You have touched on the salient points. Now, let us look at the Lebanon question. Now, President Trump has been conducting a charade. He makes Lebanon and the State of Israel to talk to each other, then he announces a ceasefire. But Israel has been bombing Lebanon, but the state of Lebanon has not been fighting Israel. So there is no question of a ceasefire between the two of them.
But the US has brought both of them on one table and claiming...
I know, but that's why I call it charade. Okay? Hezbollah should have been there. Was not there. Okay? Then the other day, President Trump said that he has spoken to Hezbollah.
Leader, yes.
Yes. Now, I compliment him for speaking to Hezbollah, because that is, a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking. Because State Department will tell you, oh, it's a designated terrorist organization, we can't talk. But still, what has been agreed to between Israel and Lebanon is that Israeli army will take over the southern Lebanon below the river Litani and replace the Hezbollah militants who are there. It doesn't say anything about Israeli armies withdrawing from there. So what Hezbollah has said, and in fact the media have not been correctly explaining their position. What they have said is that this ceasefire is not good enough. Israel should withdraw in toto.
True.
Then there can be ceasefire.
They have not rejected in totality.
Yeah, I mean, they have told you very clearly, look at the big picture. You know, you say that we should be replaced, our presence, by the by the Lebanese army. And we should be disarmed. No, that's not on. Okay. Now, another thing is, the Lebanese army is not capable of doing that. So, it is a non-starter. Next point is that President Trump had a rather tense conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu, used expletives, which I don't want to repeat. But the point is this, immediately thereafter, Netanyahu came out with a post saying that spoken to President Trump and Israel retained its right to defend itself and this and that. And then he followed it up with orders to the military to move on. He didn't say, you know, we have signed this, we have to respect that. In other words, Netanyahu, till now, I don't know about tomorrow, has been able to defy Trump. Now this, you know, in English we say, you know, the tail wagging the dog. Because Israel is a beneficiary, the biggest beneficiary from American funds, American military weapons, technology, diplomatic protection. But it is Israel which dictates to America what its policy should be in the region. But this has not been always the case. Let's go back to 1982. Israel was bombing Beirut. Women and children were also getting killed.
Right.
Reagan, he told his Secretary of State, tell them to stop it. Well, he may have told them, but they were not stopping it. Then Reagan got onto the phone, no cell phone those days,
Right.
and told Menachem Begin, stop the Holocaust.
My God.
And Begin said, how can you talk to me about Holocaust? My family died in the Holocaust. I'm telling you, stop it, and stop it now. So it was a very short conversation. Within 10 minutes or so, the Israeli cabinet met and they stopped the bombing. In other words, the President of the United States, the most powerful person under the moon, has also responsibility how to make use of his authority in a manner which is good for the whole world. And I'm sorry to say, Trump has failed to do that.
I'll like to interrupt you. A very big question here. Why is the US unable to rein in Netanyahu? It's not even Israel. I really think that it is Netanyahu. Please dwell on this.
Okay, now let me sort of rephrase the question. Why is Trump not able to rein in Netanyahu? Now, I do not have a full explanation, but I have a theory. It's only a hypothesis. Now, of course, once the classified documents come out, years later, I may be proved right or I may be proved wrong. Now, my hypothesis is that, you know about the Epstein file?
Yes, of course.
Now, look at the Epstein file. Is it not abundantly clear that a foreign intelligence agency might have been behind it?
Absolutely. Could have been an Israeli
Quite possible that Mossad was behind it. And Epstein was recording everything his guests were doing. You know, wherever they went.
Absolutely.
Whether they were
Every single thing is
they
recorded.
were drinking or went to the bathroom or they went somewhere else, everything was being recorded. IT, information technology, at its worst. Okay. Now, obviously, only a foreign intelligence agency is interested in it, not Epstein, the person. What will you do with it? Okay. In other words, it's my view that Mossad has a full file. And we are told the Justice Department also has a full file.
Okay.
And the Justice Department, under compulsion, had come out with, released how many million pages? 3 million pages, I believe. But there is still more. Okay. Now, the trouble is, when you say you have deleted something, privacy claim or any other reason, national security, whatever, that means you are telling the whole world you have deleted it. Now, it may be possible if you have got superior information technology to delete without leaving any trace, so that you don't have to explain anything.
Right.
Now, it is possible that Mossad has that technology.
Oh.
It's possible that a message had gone to Trump that we can go on releasing next time the Epstein file in a manner which takes care of you completely. Because it is quite possible that the Epstein file contains matters which can embarrass or even incriminate Trump. Okay? So, probably. But as I said, this is only a hypothesis. Because my view of President Trump is that he has a soft corner for Netanyahu.
Right.
But when it comes to his own interests, Trump is capable of ordering people. After all, he is a real estate tycoon.
True.
In fact, he is not a statesman, he is a real estateman.
Businessman. Yeah. Now, I mean, of course, we've discussed the Middle East at length and the US, interjections as well. Let's come to India. India has been, of course, we've tried to seem to come across as somebody who's been balancing its relationship with everybody. And that's a right approach. I mean, of course, that's an approach that we need to follow in the kind of multipolar world that we are in today. Now, we've seen that, while there have been engagements with the public, the Indian public has literally stood with Iran. A section of it has literally stood with Iran. But there have been many digressions from how we have dealt with Iran in the past. We've seen that after the Ayatollah's death, and we've also seen that, the moment Iran started bombarding the UAE especially and the other, players in the Gulf, India has also, categorically stated that it is wrong and these countries should not have been attacked. We have a huge diaspora in the UAE as a backdrop also, if I may mention. Now, at the moment, we are in a very strange situation where a section of our own public claims that we should have been the one who should have been mediating and not Pakistan. Now, this is a very silly, jingoistic kind of an argument which I don't think stands in geopolitics. Number one, how should we look at this mediation effort by Pakistan? Given the fact that they have also been, now a report claims, a country which has provided Iran its own land to park their planes. Number two, is it not good that India stayed away from the messy area of Middle East negotiations?
First part was about India's government of India's policy and how the public opinion in India is different from the government's policy.
And how we've also digressed from our,
exactly. Now, the other day at the India International Center, we had a discussion. I will not mention out of courtesy the speaker, but he's a very eminent person. So he argued that India was taking care of its national interests by not coming out with a statement criticizing Israel's action by lending support to Israel in full measure. So I was not a speaker,
Okay.
but from the audience, I raised the question. I said, by not criticizing, because my view is that the word condemnation should be avoided. India, in what way India's national interest was saved? And then I said, by not criticizing or expressing moral outrage at the killing of 165 plus children, girls, schoolgirls, in what way India's national interest was saved? And then I said, as BRICS chair, we were asked to come out with a statement. And we have failed. So, in these three instances, do you think that our national interest was really served? And, well, the speaker had no answer. In other words, it is abundantly clear that India's national interest was not in any way served by India's initial stand of total 10% alignment with Israel. Now that is being corrected, I would say timidly and very slowly, without clear-eyed precision. So that is India's policy. Now why is India doing that? We can discuss. Okay? Because that's also interesting. Because you have to always dig deeper. Now coming to mediation, first of all, let's understand. Pakistan was chosen by the United States. President Trump looks down upon most of his peers, but he looks up to one man, and that is Field Marshal of... Yes, because he is taller. Well, not only physically, but in President Trump's mind, otherwise also.
Okay.
He's much impressed. He's the only one whom he invited, a military person.
It's a different theory to be discussed at a later point.
I know.
That they have given a lot of land to President Trump as well.
Yes, that is the family business.
The family business.
Okay.
At the end of the day, he's a transactional business.
Okay. So it was Trump who chose Pakistan and Iran agreed. Now, why did Iran agree? A, Pakistan is a neighbor. There is a sizable Shia population and something which the Indian media has never mentioned. Since 1992, Pakistan has been looking after the interests of Iran in Washington. Before that, it was Algeria. Now coming to, my view is that let there be successful mediation. It doesn't matter who does it, so long as it succeeds. And India will benefit immensely when it succeeds, if it succeeds.
Absolutely.
Now to be petty-minded and resenting Pakistan is doing it, well, that is not good diplomacy. There was a time when India mediated successfully, when there was V.K. Krishna Menon. 1954, Geneva, Indo-China Conference. Korea also was being discussed. India was not invited. Well, Krishna Menon dropped in. Anthony Eden, UK Foreign Secretary, had invited him. He was on his way to New York. But he stayed for almost 20 days. He worked 18 hours a day by talking to the delegations outside the conference room because he had no access. And the resolution that was finally passed was drafted by him, and it is almost exactly the same as a statement made by Jawaharlal Nehru some weeks ago in the Indian Parliament. That is diplomacy.
Which means we have a lot of history there.
Yes. Now, what is interesting is that these days people say you can have successful diplomacy if only you have got military power, if only you have got GDP, economic power. Well, India was militarily weak,
Right.
GDP wise also not very strong, but India spoke and the world listened. Partly, of course, Mahatma Gandhi's prestige, partly Nehru's prestige, and partly in Krishnamurti we had a guy who could navigate skillfully through perilous diplomatic waters. I don't know whether we have anyone at this moment. Sorry to say. So that is that. Now, Pakistan has been doing it, to my mind, according to what is in the public domain, very skillfully, showing patience and tact. Whether it will succeed or not, we do not know. But we all want it to succeed, not tomorrow, but today.
Now, coming to, the question that we were discussing earlier, we said that we'll also take it up about the India-Israel relationship. You said that there are reasons why India is, conducting itself when it comes to Iran in a manner the way it is, and there's reason to that. Now, we had a discussion at the IWPC where Ambassador Anil Tribhunath was here, and, he was also asked a question about, India's stance about, vis-a-vis Iran, and also about India's, sort of proximity to Israel. Now, he had an observation to make, and he said that, Operation Sindoor, I mean, just last year it has happened, and during that time, the one nation that stood by India was Israel. And their people were in fact helping Indians here. And it is also in India's interest to, have a good relationship with Israel. How do you see this new proximity? And do you think that there is weightage to this argument?
You correctly said that during Sindoor, Israel is only a country that stood with India. Well, it's also true. Pakistan got support, political and military, from China, from Turkey, and diplomatic support from Azerbaijan. And in this case, India is the only country which has stood by Israel.
Right.
Is there any other country? Has any other leader visited Israel recently? No.
Even the Italians don't shake hands with them.
Yes. Well, and I think, Slovakia, I think, they disallowed the landing rights. Anyway, so India, now let's look at India-Israel relations. First of all, India recognized Israel in early 1950, and there was a consulate in Bombay. It's only, when Narasimha Rao was Prime Minister, that we established resident diplomatic relations. You know what I mean? So it was not that India had not recognized. You see? But we were instructed not to have much to do with Israeli diplomats. So I remember when, for example, Indira Gandhi was assassinated. I was in Rome, opened a condolence book. The Israeli ambassador called me whether he could come. I said, please. But at the same time, when I was in Finland, the Indian great musician from Bombay, Zubin Mehta, isn't it? Zubin, yeah. Now, I was giving a dinner. So the Israeli ambassador called me whether he could be invited. No, I said, I'm sorry. I have my limitations. But at the same time, one used to keep in touch with him. One was not, don't do what the government doesn't want you to do, but at the same time, diplomacy consists in keeping in touch. Yeah. Okay, now, another thing is that this negotiations for establishing resident diplomatic relations. They were conducted in the External Affairs Ministry. Note by Joint Secretary Wana, West Asia and North Africa. It was done by Joint Secretary AMS, Americas. And I was Joint Secretary Gulf.
Okay.
My colleague, she passed away, Ambassador Kamlesh Kumar, recently. She was not told about it, but of course, we always came to know what is happening. That's a different story. Now, that was a correct thing, to establish resident relations with Israel. You know what I mean? And we had also informed Arafat. It was all done correctly. But this closeness came only after Prime Minister Modi came in 2014. But before that, let me also share with you, when Prime Minister Gujarat came to Rome, I was ambassador there, and we had a conversation because I had worked with him when he was foreign minister. We had the evacuation of Indians. So there was something which happened, and so we were together for a long time. So I asked him, what's happening with our relations with Israel? Yes, Fabian, I also asked the same question, and on day one, I asked my office, why do we have such close relations? Why do we need such? And you know what happened? They gave me a ton of files the next day.
Okay.
Gujarati speaking. Again. So Gujarat said, he said, remove the files, tell me in one sheet of paper what's the matter. So the argument was that we get military technology from Israel. Suppose we ask the Americans for technology A, they will either say, yeah, we'll look into it, or they will just deny. Sorry. Now, if we ask the Israelis to get us the same technology, they will get it. And, they have been, whether it was Kargil or anything, they have been, doing it. So that is one part of it. But let me also say there is a deeper reason. And that is that way back, when Hitler was conducting the Holocaust, Savarkar, RSS great leader, he had publicly that, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Why? Because, that is the way to treat the minorities. And he almost implied that India should treat the minorities or a particular minority in the same way. He almost implied. So, this approach of not treating the minority properly, this what we may call Islamophobia.
Okay.
Fear and hatred of Islam is very much there, and that explains in good measure why Prime Minister Modi went there, because there is no issue between Israel and India that needed discussion at the Prime Minister's level. The ambassador here has full access not only to the Foreign Office, Home Ministry and any other ministry. And our ambassador there also has good access. So there was no need to discuss anything at the Prime Ministerial level. So Israel wanted a visit from Prime Minister Modi because nobody else is visiting them. And actually, Netanyahu was pushing us to come here, and we didn't agree. You know what I mean? And then, when Prime Minister Modi's jet landed the Ben Gurion airport, there were 8 super tankers. That is, mid-air. They were parked there.
Okay.
Super tankers for mid-air fueling of the aircraft.
Okay.
They were parked there. There were 2 unmarked 747 parked there. Now, I am told that an unmarked 747 is used for transporting embassy personnel or embassy related stuff. Okay. Now, whether Netanyahu told him, we do not know. My guess is that he wouldn't have told him because this is too sensitive. So, that is where we are. But I think India's policy is wrong. India could have come out with a statement, and let me explain. You see, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, 2nd of August 1990, Washington and the rest of the West came out with a statement condemning it. We also came out with a statement without using the word condemn.
Yeah.
We said in plain English that the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Kuwait should be restored immediately, and matters should be discussed, disputes should be discussed according to international law and under the United Nations Charter and resolved, not through military means. Why did we deliberately choose not to use the word condemnation? Because A, we wanted to do whatever we can to resolve the matter with Iraq's peacefully withdrawing its military without a war. Secondly, we had a huge, our diaspora there, people, and we were naturally worried about their safety. And if war clouds gather and if we have to
Evacuate
them, we needed the benevolence of Saddam Hussein. We can't do it without him. So, in diplomacy, you have to look at the big picture and choose your words. It's not a question of condemnation. Now, in this case, I think India could have come out with a statement which I mentioned, something similar lines. Now, why India didn't do it? Two reasons. One is India didn't feel the need for it. And why did India did not feel the need for it? Lack of diplomatic imagination.
It's clear that there is much more to India's foreign policy. Of course, it's not limited to how India views the world. It's also about how India views its own people. You rightly pointed out its treatment to its own minorities. Not India's, in fact, some leaders and their thoughts about our own minorities. But at the end of the day, it's also about, how our own governments, our own regimes have shifted stances over the years. This has been a very engaging, a very frank, and a very, very enlightening conversation. Ambassador Fabian, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. India Abroad, and it has been a pleasure discussing things with you. It's a conversation,
Right.
Because that is what is important. And all the best to you and to hundreds of thousands of listeners
Right.
across the globe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Clearly, there hasn't been anyone as engaging on geopolitics and, of course, the Indian foreign policy at the moment, the way things have panned out. We're looking forward to engaging with such diplomats, such brilliant minds in the future too. Keep tuned into India Abroad. This is me, Shikha Salaria, right in the heart of New Delhi for India Abroad.